I'll call the meeting to order here at 10:02. And first order of business is that we do have housekeeping here. So if you want to ensure that you are muted, if you want to put up your hand, if you in the discussion period, for sure, put up your hand or you can use the chat feature that is on Zoom here. Hopefully everyone has become accustomed to taking part. And if there's voting, please, if you're not a KAP member, if we will verify the polling function, but if we have to use that, be conscious if you're a member. And to that note, we'll proceed to the agenda. And I know David has already mentioned for the addition of AAFC cuts. We can certainly add that to other business at this time, David. And is there anything else changes to add to the agenda as presented? We certainly should have some time for other discussion and hopefully some great discussion under drone application today. As there were no resolutions brought forward for today. So we certainly have some time for additional Q&A later on in the meeting. So with that, I'll ask for an approval of the agenda. A motion to approve that, if someone would either put in the chat or...
I can. Kevin Peters.
Kevin Peters. Thank you, Kevin. And seconder?
David Rourke.
David Rourke. Thank you, David. Any other questions? With that, I'll ask the question, are there any opposed to approving the agenda as amended?
That's the advanced license is the one.
Pardon me?
I think somebody was just unmuted, Jill. You muted yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning, Colin. Thank you for that. Okay, so seeing no one is opposed to that, that is carried. The minutes from our last meeting were also circulated from I believe the last advisory council meeting. So I'll ask for a motion to approve those as circulated from the body that's here today.
Shannon Piziak, District 10.
Thank you, Shannon. Seconder for that? I've got James Webb. Thank you, James. And any opposed to that motion? And I can't see if there's any hands up. I'm assuming no hands, then that is approved as the minutes. Good morning, everyone. So I'd like to start first by thanking everyone for attending our first advisory council meeting for this year, and I guess make some comments on the 2026 Manitoba budget that was announced yesterday. Keystone Agricultural Producers attended and issued a news release in a response, and I'll share some of the highlights from that, from the budget. And of course, the first primarily being continuance of the 50% school tax rebate on farm properties and farmland school tax rebate will continue, as well as the Crown land rent freeze also continues. There were some additions through MASC programming, through particularly the Young Farmer Rebate, where there was increases to funding, as well as increases to other programs through MASC. Keystone Agricultural Producers also partnered with the government over the last number of years to create the Manitoba Veterinarian Medical Services Strategy. And there also was new funding and initiatives that will help address some of those veterinarian shortages that we're seeing or have been seen here in rural Manitoba. There's also been a creation of a $10 million Churchill Plus Catalyst Fund, again, partnering with the commitments from the federal government. So certainly looking at trade, the importance of that port, and being a catalyst here in Manitoba. There's also creating a new economic development agency. This was a recommendation coming out of the Premier's Business and Jobs Subcommittee that I served on, as well as the Manitoba Trade and Market Diversification plan being launched in 2026. So KAP has been very proactive, involved with both Minister Moses' office as well as on the subcommittee for business and jobs and the CUSMA committee, all dealing with the effects of agriculture and impact on economic driving here in the province. So really positive to hear that some of recommendations and certainly our voice is being heard at that table. We'll continue to work with the government and push for agriculture to be a priority and top of mind of all departments. At the end of February, KAP sent a delegation to the CFA, Canadian Federation of Agriculture, their AGM, had discussions with many producers, stakeholders, and of course, government. A lot of discussions were on the CUSMA renewal or review, more importantly, that's upcoming here in this summer. Trade and clarity on the impact of AAFC research cuts. And as David had mentioned, we've jotted out some time to kind of flush out some of the concerns later on in the meeting today. KAP met with Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, USDA, Manitoba PC caucus members, Senators Senator Black, Mulgy, and Senator Lewis while we were in Ottawa. I know for producers right now, rising fuel, fertilizer costs, as well as other input costs, have a big impact on us as producers. Nitrogen costs have escalated, and we've heard anywhere, as high of $1,200 in from a few months ago, and in the fall, even starting at lower than or around $750. Dyed diesel and gasoline has also gone up, and we've seen a continual increase in pressure here in Manitoba. And that's something I think that is really going to, I think, have an impact on this year as if there is no resolution, that's going to impact us through the whole growing season. These will be and are significant going into spring. Finally, I want to mention the KAP AGM. We had over 150 participants, including farmers, industry partners, stakeholders, elected officials, and government representatives. 11 resolutions were passed at that meeting, and we also held policy roundtables that set a strong direction for KAP, particularly on drainage, which was the big discussion. So on that note, I'm going to pass the mic over to Colin Hornby, the general manager, and he is going to provide an update from the KAP office. Go ahead, Colin.
Thanks, Jill. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm just using a different setup. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Jill covered quite a bit of stuff there as well. I think the budget was obviously the biggest thing because it was yesterday, so we're still sort of going through that, but definitely pulled out some good things there. One thing I wanted to bring up again was about the trade and diversification plan the province announced. So about a year ago, we released a agriculture trade action plan, and part of that was to look at having a strategy for the province. So this is something we've been talking about for some time with them to advocate for. So this is, I know, a bit more broad, but we're going to be continuing to push on that to say, make sure agriculture is at the forefront, given the impact on the economy in Manitoba. It's definitely a key part of any strategy that's brought forward. Some of the other things that, again, Jill highlighted what was in that, things we continue to ask for that or recommend that were not included in the budgeting, additional tax credits for young farmers to help encourage that, looking at the education property tax removal and a new funding model, so farmers aren't paying that disproportionate amount, as well as some regulatory reform areas. We had provided some specifics that could be dealt with afterwards, but definitely were things that we included. And of course, the drainage discussion that we had at the AGM is something across the province we're seeing. So we'd really like to see some enhanced investment in those areas. That's between the province and the municipalities. So there's that's something we're working with both levels of government to to try and figure out a good way forward. We took part in a strategic planning session with the University of Manitoba for the agriculture department or faculty there. So trying to help out with setting the strategic direction and along with many other groups that were part of that discussion. So that was positive because we are strong partners with them, definitely. We also have been doing, as Jill had mentioned, consulting with the province on CUSMA as well as the next policy framework. So the next policy framework discussions we're having something as well next week. There will be a discussion with the federal ag minister about the next policy framework in Manitoba. But at the provincial level, there was a session with Manitoba Agriculture to talk about what some of those sort of themes will be in the priority areas. On CUSMA, I did attend a session with the province, and they had asked for some specific feedback around what's working, what's not, what needs to continue, what needs to be enhanced, etc. So a very good detailed discussion with the province. On the research cuts, as was mentioned by David at the top of the call here, something that's been definitely consuming a lot of energy. We've been working with groups across Canada. The CFA is taking a strong sort of lead on doing some work there, but we're working with our provincial groups here, just looking at, outlining those impacts and looking at a path forward to work with government on. So there's been some strong advocacy done. Been a lot of discussion in the public sphere as well and different publications. So something that we're definitely involved in. We've been engaging with the commodity groups more regularly, and we've developed our operations plan for the year that will be just sort of finalized and shared across with some people to see, because it's a good way to sort of provide more detail as to what exactly we're doing in the office. Excuse me. We've been working as well to talk with Fertilizer Canada on the promotion for our nutrient stewardship. As you may know, we've been part of a memorandum of understanding with the province and Fertilizer Canada for many years, looking at how we can better use that MOU to promote. So there might be some things coming there with some outward campaigns to try and increase those certified acres in Manitoba. So a problem across Canada. We're not the only province where there is less of a number of certified acres as are sort of what people are saying is they're using 4R. So we're looking. We've been out at some AGMs. I presented at the turkey producers meeting as well as the Manitoba Beekeepers Association. And we're working as well on the labor file with the Career Pathways program, developing an online resource to attract individuals to come work in agriculture in the most needed jobs. So that's something that Leisha has been leading on our end. Contractor Coles Ag, who we use for a significant amount of our work. And that's something that we look forward to sharing more on in the next few months once the resource is live. On the safety, farm safety, we've been doing some resources. Ag has been working with the Canadian Pork Council as well as some other groups, young agrarians, and presenting at Assiniboine College to some students on safety-related topics and creating some resources that can be used for those groups. Looking ahead, we're already in the planning of the 2027 AGM, and we did recently attend, as Jill mentioned, the CFA annual meeting and Canadian Crops Convention, which was in Toronto a couple of weeks ago, which was also the Canola Council's annual meeting. So that's I think a good snapshot of some of the things we've been working on, Jill. So I'll pass the baton back to you.
Great. And I guess now we'll, if there's a brief update, I have Neil is on the call to do a policy update at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to provide you with a brief policy update on some of the things that we've been working on. So a few months ago, we met with the Winnipeg metropolitan region. They sought stakeholder feedback regarding a new regional plan. We emphasized to the organization the need to protect and recognize agricultural land operations in the region. They plan on releasing a draft plan in the summer of 2026. At that time, we'll provide further feedback to the organization. Rural Development Action Plan. This was a consultation done by Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada. They wanted to know ways in improving, essentially rural life throughout Canada. Farming is a key component throughout rural Manitoba, and our comments focused on rural connectivity, rural infrastructure, immigration and population, program delivery and action, as well as community safety. As everyone knows, the provincial budget was released yesterday. Before the budget was released, KAP provided comments to the Department of Finance. Some of our recommendations focused on the removal of the education property tax, the farmland school tax rebate, drainage infrastructure, RTAC roads, labor shortages, agricultural trade strategy, the right to repair, healthcare, young farmers, and regulatory reduction. A few months ago, Clean Farms undertook a consultation proposing changes to its ag plastics recycling program. These changes would add an environmental handling fee to certain materials such as bale wrap, silage bags, silage bunker covers, and tarps. We provided feedback to Clean Farms regarding these proposed changes, highlighting concerns with the increased costs associated. The next one, Agricultural Cranlands Leasing Program. The government has been consulting with stakeholders over the last few years, looking at ways to improve this program. This is an important program for both livestock producers as well as crop producers in the province. Our recommendations focused on creating a regulatory sandbox to test out different options in allocating leases to producers. This would allow the province to see what approach works well and which doesn't work so well. Lastly, website update. If you're interested in seeing what resolutions we've been working on, what are the updates since 2020, those updates can be found on our website under the policy section. It provides comments, updates, and you can see recent submissions as well. So that's it for the policy. If there are any questions, happy to answer any of them.
Great. Thank you very much, Neil, for that. And if you have any questions for Neil, you can either put them in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand. Colin, your hand is up. Did you want, or is that a late?
Yeah, Jill. Yeah, no, I just wanted to add two things that I forgot to mention. One was about right to repair, or Neil had kind of touched on, but the government has introduced legislation, which we had put in a pre-budget recommendation. And after the recommendation, legislation ended up being introduced at around the same time. So that is something that's before the legislature right now. And we have been sort of in discussions with the province a little bit on how that's going to look and how agriculture can fit into it, because it is focused not just on agriculture. It's more of it's consumer as well as automotive. So there's multiple industries and individuals. That's something that we're going to be working on, hoping to get that across the line. And then the other one, which would tie into the next presenter, is on the drone TMRA's consultation on drone applications for products and how that's going to look. So that's something that Neil had pulled together and submitted a oh gosh, my brain is blanking today. Submitted a letter on the consultation for that. So that's something else that we've been involved on, but looking forward to hearing Chad's perspective on that.
Yeah, that's great to hear that the consultation period ended at I believe today was the deadline, but yeah, great to have that input at that level. Thanks, Colin. Is there any questions from members on anything uh, Neil brought up? Important to note that, yeah, those updates and information are now available on our website. So certainly, good information to have if you're wanting to know exactly what is happening on the policy front and active files currently. So, okay, thank you for that report, Neil and Colin. And we're a little ahead of schedule, but I believe Chad is on. He is on with us right now. I believe I saw him log in. Emily, is he on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Hello.
I think I came out the gate with my mic off, so I was on the phone with someone on a drone specifically. So there you go. I was already talking today.
Oh, perfect. Great to see you again, Chad. It was great seeing you when I was in New Brunswick earlier this year, and awesome that you're able to join us and talk about what's happening in your area on the East Coast, and certainly with everything happening with re-looking at the regulations through PMRA and a couple of changes that most recently happened even with the regulations through Transport Canada with weights and certification. So glad to have you here with us to present on drone uses in agriculture. So I will mute myself and you can go ahead. Thanks for being with us.
Awesome. I will share my screen. Before I start, from a people in the room lens, I've got sort of a bunch of stuff I'll talk through. If there's anything that people want me to dive deeper on and not get to the end of the presentation, like it's not the end of the world. Like if there's something that hits a vein that people want to kind of dwell on for a little bit, I'm not offended if we don't get through the PowerPoint by any means. So yeah, feel free to put your hand up at any time and kind of cut me off and be like, hey, I have an idea here or anything at all. So yeah, my name's Chad Mooney. I live on a potato farm out here in PEI. We grow about 800 acres of potatoes and we manage about 2,400 acres total. We do some winter wheats and we do some hay on the back end of that third-year rotation of ours. I was in the military for a while and I moved back to the farm a few years ago, and in doing so, sort of developed into kind of a guy that knows stuff about drones and PEI, and now people ask me to talk about it. So it's I'm by no means an expert. So again, please ask questions. I've just found myself the one foolish enough to do the most so far in our area, which may not be the most in your area because I know it's kind of adopted differently within the country. So I will jump to my PowerPoint here. Okay, so 2025 was a kind of a big year of learning on the farm for us. We played a lot more with the drone, and then we also got into a fairly substantial rotational grazing trial that I'll touch on quickly too as I pass through it, since it's in the vein of technology. But I'll start with a quick video to kind of show you some of the stuff we're into. So this is a drone doing some interseeding work into some wheat. This is a drone doing variable rate application on an insecticide trial that we're working on. You can kind of see the tops moving fairly significantly on the potatoes there. This is a fenceless pasture that we brought about 120 head of cattle onto and rotationally grazed at 2-acre mob boxes last summer. And one last beautiful picture. This is more of like a tourism PEI kind of thing here. If you want to come to a field day with me, that's what you get to see. So I think Zach looks interested. Maybe Neil are the main two I can see right now. But yeah, you're all more than welcome to come out anytime. So the things we did, again, what I'll touch on today mainly is rotational grazing, frost seeding, interseeding, variable rate drone, and then scouting in potatoes particular. So again, if there's one that you want to talk on more, not offended at all. So we started the season last year doing a lot of frost seeding. So a lot of people here are running a winter wheat sort of in their 3-year rotation, but can't necessarily get their hay seed in. So what we came in and did in March through May was essentially broadcasted anywhere from 5 to 20 pounds of hay seed onto the open ground. In the early season, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with frost seeding. If not, basically the freeze thaw cycles work the seed into the ground. And by the time the seed gets to between 5 and 10 degrees Celsius in that kind of like April, May timeframe, you start to see germination happen. So it's a little bit more effective than just broadcasting seed onto the ground. It also provides enough seed contact for a lot of things that do need like a quarter or a half an inch of planting because they do work their way through the soil. The biggest benefit for us, though, is that you can see in that middle picture in April, it's hard to get on the ground in general here with anything. And the way a lot of people were doing this was taking their landau and just basically putting seed through the landau with the actual discs picked up. So they're driving over either frozen ground or lake ground in May trying to get this done. So these are the same fields basically throughout the summer. So top right one was a pasture seed. It was probably between 12 and 15 pounds of double cut and white clover. Middle one was about 12 pounds of double cut clover. Neither of those were rolled. They were just truly broadcasted and then just literally left to frost seed. And then on the right side, that's our stand of alfalfa on our farm. We ran about a 20-pound acre there and then compared it with our air seeder. And we actually rolled both sides. So we rolled everything that we put down with the drone. But you can see all of them, despite the poor weather last summer, did get a healthy stand establishment. What comes back this year after the kind of drought and tough conditions, we'll see what these kind of same fields look like this year. But from a drone standpoint, there was no reduced efficacy from application of the actual seed. The germination was just as good, and yeah, so it worked out well that way. This is the same kind of field of alfalfa in a similar picture. One thing I do notice a lot of times with the drone is that you notice some of the subtleties in moisture a little bit more, like areas that tend to be wetter tend to germinate better. But sometimes you'll see, as in this picture, this was actually what I thought was a drone mistake, but it was actually where the roller made a ridge, which covered the seed up further. So then it showed up later, but it had a lot of lines and striping, but it aligned with the actual roller width, not the drone width. So if you do get into drone broadcast seeding, know that there are some little subtle things that you think might be tied to the drone, but oftentimes are tied to other things. This picture here is a side-by-side, same field. The left side is basically the landau with the air seeder, putting our alfalfa in, and the right side is the drone. And then we just left a pass down the middle, not treated or not seeded. The rate was the same. As you can see, the catch almost looks better on the drone side. By the end of the summer, it did look fairly uniform. I would say like hard to discern the difference by the end of the summer. So we'll see what they look like this summer because it is again 2 years of alfalfa in these fields. So we'll have a better image by the end of the summer on how they actually both stands took the drought. But ultimately on establishment, both were there. A couple of quirks of learning the drone on my way through. In the middle, you'll see this was an alfalfa buckwheat broadcast trial. The buckwheat was rolled as well as the alfalfa in this one, but it didn't show up super quickly. But again, this was more of a seed timing thing. So we broadcasted the buckwheat early. It didn't have a good catch. I think a lot of it may have caught and then frost terminated, as well as just from a pure soil contact standpoint, the buck seed's big, but the roller didn't necessarily drive it into the ground like it did the other seed, maybe because of seed size. So by the end of the summer, there was some buckwheat showing up. So that's a positive lens, but we're back to the drawing board on the broadcast of buckwheat from a timing lens. But I think that's been the biggest learning curve so far is seed timing. And I don't know if it's as popular there to have sort of multi-species cover crops. It's probably common everywhere now, but we see a lot of, between 4 and 8 way mixes. And I find the timing is hard to meet the most beneficial application of these multi-species mixes because they all germinate at different times in different seed temps. And sometimes like alfalfa, for instance, gets kind of crowded out by some of the double cut clover that takes off early. So at the end of the day, that was a pretty big learning curve year one of the frost seeding side. And then again, on the right side, you'll see sort of, it's always been weak on field boundaries, but that's mainly been operator error, my own, not the drone's fault. Like being kind of nervous about the asset around trees and power lines, you tend to give yourself more space than you truly need. The drone's spreading on like a 25-foot wide pass. So you've actually got, 20 feet between you and the trees for the most part. But through the FPV camera on the drone, it always feels much closer than it actually is. So as you learn to adopt the technology, take more risk than less risk. They're not hard to fix. Now, this was one more from a frost seeding lens that was interesting. This person was, they were harrowing, or they were basically disking, then harrowing the field, then we broadcasted the whole thing. However, they did leave one strip where they didn't harrow the disked ground. We applied an even rate across the entire thing, but as you can see in the image, at the end of the day, the disc ground didn't take nearly as well as the harrow ground. We're going to check it again this summer to see if maybe it was a topography thing or like maybe a play on vision there where it's actually coming up at the same height, but the ground undulation makes it different. But more to follow. What I did realize is that there is a significant difference in what it looks like for the disc ground versus the harrow ground. So those were all kind of frost seeding lessons that we learned last summer. Before I kind of push through to sort of some of the NDVI and scouting and some of the other stuff, any quick questions on the frost seeding side? being virtual, I'll stay quiet for 3 seconds and then move on. But okay, awesome. So this is a cool picture. You might have seen it floating around on social media a little while ago, but essentially, this image here shows a 6-week comparison of late blight developing in a potato crop. And essentially, it's using NDVI to try to predict this earlier than later, ideally. But you'll see in week 1, basically, both sides are relatively uniform, no significant differences between the two. But by the time you get to week 2, you start to see some yellow shading on the left side of the image. But again, no vision there on the actual top real, like the RGB image. As you get to week 3, you probably would have noticed that from the sprayer, but you definitely notice it for sure in the NDVI image. And then obviously week 4 and week 6, it just continues to progress. What was cool was, I think from a cereal standpoint or other crops, we did a lot of, I think it's called stripe rust. Is that a thing? I think so. We're not big in the wheat side, but there are some guys doing some wheat research here. And we were able to pick up stripe rust really quickly on like field boundaries and field edges where booms were activating or they may not have been charged well enough and things like that. So NDVI works really, really well on wheat fields. Like any kind of uniform stand, it really, really quickly is able to depict problems in stands of anything really. This image here is another potato field. Colorado potato beetle is something we fight with from probably July 20th until September 1st here. This image, when you actually zoom in, you can see on that right side where what happened was we cut the hay field that was adjacent to this field, which causes the volunteer potato beetles to move into this field. Again, one of those things you would notice as a crop scout, but this took about 3 seconds in the drone to just jump up and see. So from a scouting drone lens, we would then switch to the spray drone and only do a perimeter application here. So once we see the PMRA open up with our applications and labels this summer, this would have been very simply treated. I would have just took the spray drone out of the truck and just did a perimeter boundary on that side and then left it and continued to monitor the field and not had to spray the whole field. So those are some of the true values from the scouting lens. So when you look in that video where you saw the drone basically turning off and turning on variable rate, what we did last summer was we used an artificial intelligence program called AgriScout, which you fly a small drone 2 meters above the canopy of the field. And it takes around, anywhere between 2 and 5 and 600 images of a field that may be between 20 and 150 acres. It then goes off to the cloud. It's analyzed from an AI standpoint to give like detections in fields. That's then passed off to like sort of an operations center that has agronomists in there working, and they review all of the detections. At that point, you get back like a final like report, which tells you this is exactly what we saw throughout your field. So if you see here, that image in the top right, that was a detected image that came off of the drone at 2 meters in height. And those are all individual counted Colorado potato beetles. So when you dive into that image, you can actually count threshold values from the 2 meter drone image to know whether or not you want to treat. But at the end of the day, being able to treat variable rate, our stance at our farm this summer will be like once detected, that area just will be treated. So if we detected 10 there, we would just go in quickly with the drone and do a variable rate application. I was able to simulate, should we be able to do that this summer, how long would it take to detect and treat? And essentially went out on a Saturday morning, flew the drone, sent it off for processing by 11. It was back in my inbox by supper time, and I sprayed a variable rate and like insecticide trial. What we did was we put blue dye with water to make sure that we hit all of the areas that would have been affected, all of which were hit, but we were able to do that within 24 hours, essentially. One of the most common questions I get from a drone lens is, well, how much coverage could you get from the drone from an acreage standpoint? On the new T100 drone, the biggest one, it's a 26-gallon tank, and the recommended gallons per acre is 5 for most insecticides. So if I were out treating with Viago or Coragen or one of those products, I could get 5 acres off an 8-minute fill. So let's say 10 minutes, you're covering around 50 to 60 acres an hour should you be treating. This field in particular was a very small field. It was only 12 acres. But with the detection, we only had to spray 1.6 acres of the 12. So based on sheer math, it was almost like a 90% reduction in chemical application on our first insecticide use, which would be almost $14,000 on our full rotation in that week. So it's a fairly substantial savings when a drone costs between $30,000 and $50,000. So pretty cool there. One question I get often from an AI detection is, well, do you think it's true? We took some of the detections that we got last summer because they're all GPS tagged. And then we went and we harvested plant samples and we sent them off to the PEI analytical lab. both of which came back with, verticillium wilt and brown spot or alternaria. That was essentially kind of the same thing that the drone was detecting. Biggest difference was it took the lab 3 to 4 weeks to get us the results back, and the drone was within 24 hours to tell us that. So it's pretty quick. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how accurate the lab is. A 3-week turnaround is an eternity in farmland. So yeah, not super helpful, but it is cool to see that the drone is doing positive detections, which is nice. Before I jump to some of the variable rate big drone stuff, any questions on some of the drone scouting and AI detection and that kind of stuff? Awesome. So this was a trial that we did. And again, I think this one applies to any industry. I'm getting asked this one in the blueberry world right now, if we could do something similar. What we did was we took a field, we did SWOT mapping, which I think is pretty common out west. Less so common here. A lot of people are still doing 2.5 acre grid sampling and stuff like that for true soil analysis. But we took a 50-acre field and we divided it into essentially like 20 blocks. Each block was given a different treatment method. So we looked at one, which was in our potato crop, we run 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre on mountain gem potatoes, and then 180 on russet Burbank. So we took a russet Burbank field and planted it at 150. And then we plussed it up to 180 pounds with the drone throughout the season, doing every week we would do a liquid application. But every zone got a different application. So we did grower standard, which was plussing it up to 180. We did a check, which is where we left it at 150. And then we did a SWOT map based variable rate. So basically the drone applied nitrogens to the areas that were of the most yield potential. And then we did an NDVI drone one, which I flew the drone weekly, took an NDVI map like you can see in this image here, and then turned that into a variable rate prescription, which then targeted areas that were doing weaker. So areas that were doing poorly in the field were treated with more nitrogen than that areas that were doing well. Assumption there being that maybe nitrogen was the deficiency in the plants that were weaker. What it came out to is that essentially, as you can see there, check, grower, drone, and SWOT. The grower standard and the SWOT map both yielded the highest. So they were both around 360 hundredweight per acre on dry land, non-irrigated. And then the check and the drone-based NDVI were both around 250, 260. But what was more interesting from a nitrogen standpoint is we also tested greenhouse gas emissions on every single application. And what was consistent across the trial was the SWOT map actually had the least off-gassing of nitrogen after the check. So the SWOT map and the grower standard both had more. So essentially what that's saying is there was wasted nitrogen applied to both the grower standard and the drone-based NDVI, the most of which being to the drone-based NDVI. So that was really interesting there to see that area actually lost the most nitrogen to the atmosphere. But it was relatively, the trial went really well. This year we're actually increasing it. We're doing it on irrigated land. And we're going to try to see if we get some of the similar results on the irrigated side, hoping to take some of that moisture variability out, because last summer, this field in particular only got about 170 millimeters of rain. So yeah, but that was a very cool trial. And again, this is one that could span any industry. And the drone itself, to do these variable rate applications, once it's mapped and complete, then it's a matter of just basically hitting play and sending the drone out to do the task. So super interesting there. But any questions from a variable rate nitrogen / drone use standpoint in that instance? Okay, awesome. So we'll jump into this one. Is kind of like one of my second last kind of trials from last summer. The image on the left is basically a general fertility map based on soil health. The middle image is end of season NDVI. So it was a flight probably the 3rd of September or so, maybe late August, trying to understand what we still had left for canopy on the crop of potatoes. The image on the right side is yield based on average unit tuber weight. So areas that are green had around a 4.3 ounce tuber. Areas that are orange were 2.9 for span in your brain. But what was interesting is that basically the NDVI correlated directly with tuber size and tuber quality, as well as yield of that field. But the problem is that it completely counteracts the general fertility of the season coming into it. So when we came into the season, you would assume that central part of the field would do the best. However, obviously by the actual average unit weight and the NDVI, it performed the worst. So we started working closely with A&L, trying to figure out A&L Labs to try to figure some of this out. And what it comes down to is that I looked at the last 10 years of satellite imagery on that field, and the NDVI has been consistently low in the middle. And when I talked to my father, who operates the equipment, he said the crop is always weaker in that center part of the field. There's very little field variability there. There's very little elevation change. But if you look here, this is an image from about 1967 on the right. PEI has historical imagery for the entire island from 35 onwards. So basically, when you see how this used to be farmed, it was multiple separate fields. And we really only started farming the central and the right side part of that field since probably 2016 or so. So the field variability itself is still coming back into picture. But when that field was given our current fertility plan uniformly, it's left fertilizer on the table over these years of taking less crop off. So when you run general fertility analysis on that area, essentially it comes back super healthy because it does have a lot of fertilizer residually left there from taking less crop off. So now what we're going to explore this summer is actually drilling into more about compaction and soil biology in that part of the field to see if there are amendments and changes we can make from a compaction lens, or just purely from like if we put biological or humic acid down, would that plus that area up? And then we'll be able to do variable rate application of some of those products as well. And what's cool there is that map can quickly just get turned into a drone application, and we can apply humic acid by drone in season if we wanted to try to stimulate some of that growth should we need to, because there are some products like Albio 7 that are foliar applied in times. So before I touch on PMRA and the policy moving forward, those are a lot of the main crop examples that sort of we played with last summer. I didn't touch on the regenerative agriculture one super heavy with the cattle, mainly because this one's more focused on the drone side for sure. But if anyone is curious on how the Gallagher Shepherd collars work or anything like that, it was a cool trial. So feel free to reach out separately, or I can touch on it here if there's interest. But yeah, it was a truly powerful trial to do last summer. So from a policy standpoint, so obviously you're all well versed in the fact that the public consultation was released and ended yesterday. But what does that mean for us as users or applicators? Essentially, one of the biggest fears I have from an aerial label being applied to a drone standpoint is some of the pilot specific rules put in place. For instance, like the pilot can't kind of work with chemical while in the field, based on the fact that if a plane pilot was exposed to chemical and they crashed their plane, that's bad. From a drone lens, I'm never actually flying the drone personally. Typically, when I walk into the field, it's an autonomous flight and it's scheduled. I may have to troubleshoot problems that it runs into, or if something happened in the field where a truck was where it wasn't supposed to be, I may have to, once it's stopped based on the sensors, fly up and around and over it. But for the most part, the drone takes off and lands where it took off from, and I refill it and then I send it again. And one of the most challenging parts is actually just building the field out prior to application. Also, once you've done it once, that field is easily repeated. You just go back in and hit start again because you've already flown it that season and you're just watching out for things that may have changed. So one of the biggest things I talked to when I talked to the federal minister of ag and some others was, how can we adopt this in a way that's not super disruptive? We need more people to use this asset. The drone is supposed to help us reduce workload, ideally on a labor standpoint, by having one person do two jobs in many ways. So if we put our own policy in place that handcuffs that, it reduces one of the benefits of the actual tool. So they're completely well versed in that, and they've been given enough information, I think, to possibly either say, hey, we're not going to police it, or it's something we're going to try to repeal. The biggest thing we want to avoid is having a lot of the registrants have to change their labels. So how it sits right now with the way the policy is being adopted is that all of the current aerial labeled products will just be grandfathered into drone applications. So essentially, there's 805 or 806 products, I believe, that currently have an aerial label. All of those will just be flipped to drone. And if a registrant has a concern about their individual product and it being applied by drone, they actually have to apply to have that amended to be do not apply by RPAS or do not apply by drone on label. So what the rule will be is if it says you can apply by air, you can apply by drone. One of the biggest places we run into a hiccup is with our pre-emergent and post-emergent herbicides. There's not a lot of pre-emerge nor post-emerge herbicides that are able to be applied by drone. But I think we all as growers and industry leaders know that there's a really, really important place there for variable rate weed control. When it comes to our fields, a lot of times, if your post-emergent or pre-emergent didn't work really well in a certain spot, you just want to go in and touch up those spots. You don't want to go put another blanket spray on because it does inhibit growth and harms your crop if you're at the post-emergent stage. So for us in particular, we want to dramatically reduce the amount of times we do a post-emergent if we can. But at the end of the day, there will be a lot of the aerial concerns when it comes to herbicides is obviously drift. The planes aren't as accurate, obviously, as our wheeled application methods. However, the drone in many cases has the potential to be, especially when you start to change some of the drone heights and some of the drone, like we have the potential to drop the drone height from what's the recommended 16 feet to 10 if we wanted to control some of that swath width. Because as you can see in this image, the graph that is in green is essentially like a test flight there. So the center of the drone being the center of the map, and then you have minus 16 and minus 16 either way. That's like 16 feet out from the drone center. So the coverage is fairly uniform out to about 12 feet, but then it tapers off really, really quickly. So when you do a 24-foot pass on the old drone, the T50, there was probably like 26 feet of coverage, but those last 2 feet were very, very weak and barely not covered at all. At the same time, you would try to overlap your application to ensure that you're getting 100% coverage on all the areas that are out from the middle of the drone. So obviously, when you hit from the drone to 4 feet, you have a little bit more density there, but then it drops off relatively quick, like consistently. So that's where you kind of overlap that 24-foot pass on a lot of the older drone applications to get full coverage. But the concern becomes perimeter applications from the far edge, as well as just ensuring that your overlap and your swath widths are good enough. So that's what a lot of research went into by AAFC in the last 2 years. That's kind of what's driven the public consultation, is that AAFC deemed that the variance within a drone application is no worse than the variance from a plane or a helicopter. Therefore, there's no need to continue to withhold that tool from the industry. We as users just have to be quite well versed or cognizant in the fact that, like, we have to learn what efficacy looks like from a coverage standpoint on our own, while we do our best to really be careful on perimeter applications and really be careful on people that are doing off-label applications for products that aren't truly registered for aerial. If there are products I think that people want to start applying by drone that they think would be better by drone than they would be by aerial, that's when we as the industry need to prompt the registrant to start looking into those things. So I think there will be some herbicides that people will want to try, especially like pre-emergent stuff where there's low risk to certain things in certain areas. But I think one of the ones, like, I get asked a lot about sort of third application of corn a tassel of I think it's Miravis Neo. A lot of people out our way are asking about that one, which is completely aerial approved and would dramatically like help growers' ability to get that third fungicide application on their wheat and corn crops. Because when they're at that stage of height, a lot of them are destroying crop right now by trying to get it on with a self-propelled sprayer. So I think you're in a unique world from us. Aerial applications completely illegal in PEI. So we don't allow planes, we don't allow helicopters at all. So us adopting drone here is completely new. We don't even have an aerial applicator test right now. So from an industry standpoint, I think you're better suited to adopt some of this technology a little more rapidly than us, because we're like building the drone on the runway, so to speak, as we build our applicator permits and build the people with the skill set to actually use the tool. At the same time, a lot of our fields are, our average field size probably 30 to 40 acres here, and it's fairly significant on our sort of like urban farm interface, which makes it a little bit more in your face when a drone is spraying your yard with Roundup or something like that. So that's the stuff that we're trying to manage on our end of, like, how do we throttle it to the most like respectful early adopters that are going to do a great job of stewarding this tool so the general public sees the value in it, not that it's scarily driving itself around the field attacking weeds and bugs. I think that's the biggest concern that we'll have. But again, I think your industry out there is better suited for it, because when people see something flying in a field, it's probably not like pull the car over and take a picture there like it is here. It's probably a bit more normalized. So I think that's what's cool in your side of the industry, I think. This is where sort of for me in particular, I've used this slide a lot when I present in PEI, because this is sort of where all the rules lay. So Health Canada and the PMRA, they manage our registrations and our labels. So they care about approved crops, approved uses, rates and timings, environmental limits, as well as food safety and our MRLs. That's enforced for us in particular by like a Health Canada field officer. So we call them the spray police here, but yeah, they're the ones that drive around and make sure that we're adhering to all the policies and protocols as they relate to the labels. Then we have Transport Canada now, which for you, again, is probably nothing new when it comes to planes and helicopters. In this instance, though, on November 4th, a lot of the drone-specific laws changed. So what used to need a special flight operation certificate, which was flying a heavy lift drone, now is just grandfathered in under the advanced license. So essentially, if you do an online test and an in-person flight review with a flight reviewer, you can now fly a spray drone with no restrictions at all, up to 330 pounds as it relates to Transport Canada. The DJI T100 is 329.8 pounds, basically. So I think it's been the asset that they've built the policy around. But civil aviation inspectors only show up on complaint or an incident. So at the end of the day, for us in particular, the closest civil aviation inspector is in Moncton. They're not going to drive to PEI because someone's worried about a drone flying near their house. By the time they get there, already be to another field. So ultimately, this is where we as users or drone operators need to be really cognizant of the civil aviation laws so that we make sure that we don't do something that jeopardizes the entire industry for its use. And then for us in particular in PEI, we have to create a pesticide applicator for drones specifically. What I assume will happen in all of your neck of the woods is that they'll just say, if you have your aerial application permit, it's the same for drone or airplane or helicopter. It's probably these nuanced to the individual license at that point, but I can't speak for sure. And someone on the call may know better what your individual provincial laws may look like. But that's what it looks like for us based on not having a provincial aerial program currently in place. From is it as fast as a wheeled sprayer lens? This math is based on like 123-foot boom agrifac. In PEI in particular, we're not hitting 120 acres an hour with a spray application on a wheel. It's probably like more of 40 or 50 on a good day. But we spend a lot of time folding in booms and turning around. So I'd say 120 acres may be a reasonable number for your neck of the woods where you have bigger fields and kind of longer runways to get that stuff done. But the DJI Agris T100, basically, it's sitting at between 60 and 80 acres an hour, depending on what your gallon per acre rate is. Most fungicide applications, they're running them at 5 gallons per acre with the risk of allowing 3 on certain ones. A lot of people doing contact fungicides have went back to 5 when they switched to 3. So that may go to show that there's a bit of an efficacy drop at 3 gallons per acre if it's a contact in particular. But again, at 5 gallons per acre, 2 Agris T100s would keep up with an agrifac condor in a fairly large field. So that goes to show that two of those on one trailer could replace $1 million sprayer, and the cost to get 2 of those in a trailer would be probably less than $250,000. So from a cost benefit analysis standpoint, it's definitely there as an ROI. It burns a lot less fuel, obviously, with the generator versus a wheeled sprayer. It's just, again, a new tool that's a bit more disruptive in the industry. So what we're doing here for our fields in particular, because they all are smaller and it's harder to move around, we built this out on the farm for this summer to trial. It just basically 300-gallon tank slips in the truck, and that truck can drive from field to field and cover between 60 and 100 acres off a fill without having to see the water truck. Luckily for us, a lot of our farm fields are within, 20 kilometers of the farm, so just shoot back and fill up. We don't have to necessarily drag out a water truck. But again, I think for your larger acreage, this wouldn't be as applicable as an actual trailer with 2 assets would be. But there may be farms that aren't farming massive acreage that would adopt something like this to be a little bit more agile. So yeah, this is my kind of finishing slide on what I've been trying to offer to growers here in PEI. My goal throughout this whole journey was to never let a grower try to adopt disruptive technology like this alone. So I always tell them I don't want to be a drone salesperson. I want to be like I'm a farmer that doesn't, I'm never going to make more money selling drones than I will growing potatoes probably. So at the end of the day, I just want to make sure the tool is adopted in a friendly manner that doesn't see it banned for the entire industry. So I basically got my flight reviewer status and a bunch of other stuff so that a grower can come to me and kind of buy their drone, get it fixed, get their licenses, and troubleshoot all their problems at the same time. So we're also trying to build out a platform so that a user can have all their data in one spot, but it also plugs into the drone and their John Deere Op Center or their New Holland fields, whichever application tool they're using to cover their own fields, or PTX if you're a Fendt person, or AgriFac. So we're trying to build that out now. If there are people that are interested in platforms and want to learn more about that, I can definitely help you out. And if there are people that are interested in more information as it relates to spray drones in your region, Green Arrow Tech is who the company I'm kind of affiliated with is, and they're nationwide. So there'd be a distributor or someone out for Green Arrow Tech in your region that would be able to sort of walk you onto the same thing I'm doing, or give you examples that may be more pertinent to the industry that you're trying to navigate, not necessarily sort of our potato /wheat/hay problem that we have. So that's basically the main amount of information to throw at you. But yeah, now I'm more than open to discuss things further or answer questions or get out of your hair, whatever's the easiest. But yeah, it's all cool stuff. I'm sorry it is so potato focused in ways, but I'm sure it's a mixed bag of growers in the audience anyway.
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation, Chad, and definitely provided a lot of insight on the ground what you're doing out east, and how we can look at applying that here in Manitoba once we see some hopefully very positive, seeing some of those changes through first through PMRA. And I'm just gonna open if anyone has a question, if you want to put it in the chat or just raise your hand. Between Emily and myself, I'll just kind of watch the for hands going up to see if we have any questions from anyone today. We might let you off the hook here this morning.
I never know if it's because it's boring or if it's because I've answered every question. I always assume the latter. Yeah.
It's lots of information for sure, and the adaption as well. So yeah, be interested to see if we have any questions. If not, I know certainly it would be great if you shared that information on green. Is it Aerotech
Yeah,
that's
I'll throw their website in the chat
okay,
here. I also
perfect.
just threw my own personal cell number.
Okay,
Yeah, just throw my own personal cell phone number, or here's my email, whichever people
okay,
prefer. I'm like much quicker to text back than I am usually to respond to email, just because I always have my phone on me in a field somewhere. Um,
great.
but yeah, any questions anyone has at all, never hesitate to text. It's one of those ones that, as we adopt it, people are going to find new use cases all over the country. So
Mhm.
there's no sense in learning those in silos. So I'm an open book, and when I smash it into a telephone pole, I'll definitely send you pictures and we can laugh about it. But when I find an awesome perimeter application that works perfect for potatoes and saves us 10 grand an application, I'll also send that to you. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, David has his hand up, and then there's also one question in the chat here that I can ask after. So David, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks for the presentation. It's hard to keep up. You go pretty fast. That's probably why you like drones. Um, Question more about broadcast. Certainly in the Red River Valley, it was really wet last year. Combines were leaving ruts, or guys just waited till frost. So broadcast cover crops work quite well. But often we're what I call too dry, too wet, too late. Um, what conditions do you need, and do you normally have that makes broadcasting, particularly in the fall, a reliable method of establishing cover crops?
Yeah. Two things that we do here that work that one wouldn't be applicable, but is interesting. So we did a lot of broadcasting. One year we just tried it out to do broadcast of winter wheat, rye, and oats in front of the harvester. So before our potato harvester went in, we broadcasted the entire field. That way, when it came through, they shook through the chains and they made contact that way. So that was a cool use case that actually, when I was talking to some folks in the US, it's mandatory there for them in some crops, and they can never get it done with their actual spreaders. So they want to buy drones purely to broadcast seed in front of their potato harvesters. Another one that we worked on last summer, and again, we experienced the same problem that you're alluding to, is we went out and broadcasted into a standing crops, basically. So we went out and tried to get our timings dialed in that essentially wanted to get it into just before the harvester or the combines went in, so that when they put out whatever they were going through and doing, all of that helps settle and get the seed to make contact with the ground based on not only the wheels of the combines, but everything getting pushed through. Some of those worked well and some of them didn't, but a lot of it was due to rain. A lot of it was also due to timing. If we went to how it's supposed to work is that you get essentially a heavy dew or stuff like that prior to the harvest, gives enough moisture at the bottom of the canopy that it allows germination to occur, but you have to get it then harvested or like late enough that germination has occurred, it hasn't died off, and it starts to get sunlight. So we're doing that trial again this summer, and going a bit earlier. I think we went too late last year with it, and we didn't get a lot of rain, which again was part of the issue as well. A lot of our trials last summer, the results were you can't replace rain, which is a result nonetheless. But This summer, as we navigate that one, I'd love to share some of the results with you. One that worked really well was actually soybean before leaf drop. So we broadcasted over soybeans before leaf drop, and they caught really, really well. And that was probably the one we had the most luck with. And that was, I believe, winter wheat seed into established soybeans. So that's sort of the two use cases that I can speak to offhand. But one of our biggest issues, last summer was just lack of rain.
Okay, thanks.
Great question. Colin had a question in the chat here about any lessons learned from the US and adoption of their drone regulatory realm. I think here in Canada, we were kind of caught with trying to catch up fast after, it's already working somewhere else. So any lessons learned, because you do mention and collaborate with other applicators in the States.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones that I got from working with them, or we as an industry got, Green Aerotech did a good job of linking in with them early when they were doing basically all of their swath width testing. So they were able to actually go out and spray. They almost failed forward on swath widths live, and we got the data from it. So it was really hard, virtually impossible to get like a research trial in place to do drone application and actually test out fungicides and actually test these products out. But the US adopted it and just kind of learned efficacy on the fly. So what we got from them was like what the recommended heights and spray widths were, because on the aerial label, they don't give a recommended height nor they just say like do not apply below this sometimes, or do not apply above this. But what the optimal height was never really decided. So on the newest drone, for instance, the 16 feet that's dictated as fly the T100 at 16 feet was based on the fact that they did fungicide, herbicide, and insecticide applications all at different water volumes, all at different height on spray paper, and then just gave us all the results. So I think we kind of fast-tracked efficacy in a way by being slow. We may be as fast, sort of, when it comes to being efficient with the use of the product.
Thanks for that. Are there any other questions? We'll certainly we do have his contact information if anyone has questions that relates to their farm in particular, but certainly a topic that is top of mind right now. And we did reach out and had conversations with Transport Canada kind of on the regulation and the civil laws that are in place currently, and just for the producers, just to keep your eyes open on not our next Farmer's Voice, but the summer edition. We'll hopefully have both Chad as well as Transport Canada on a magazine article on the topic as well. And before we go, we've got David Rourke. You just put your hand up again. Well, one more quick question.
Sure. In terms of late blight, do you have to do? I know the tolerance for late blight is extremely low, and you don't want it to get ahead at all. So, with your technology, were you able to get those really early detections, or you still got to do a lot by ground, by hand?
What's interesting is like I wonder if I can pull one up super quick. Late blight detections actually flag very aggressively in the AI software that we're using, because they're such a prominent problem. Like if you were to receive it, a lot of the late blight detections that I get are highlighted red on all my crop maps. And then they give you a GPS tag to go and check it, essentially. So those ones, though, we didn't get a chance to actually harvest and take to the lab just because we didn't have time in the summertime. The assumption we operated off of last summer was like the summer wasn't conducive to late blight at all. Therefore, it's probably not there. I'm hoping that's like a thing we can maintain. But like the spots that did have late blight detections, the difference being was that the basically infection started from center of leaf and moved out, whereas a lot of the other infections moved from outer leaf in. And again, talking to people that are much smarter than me in this space and time, they were like, don't worry about that. The conditions aren't right. But what it does do is when it does detect it, it says dead. So it says like late blight dead, which is pretty interesting that way. But I haven't had any live late blight detections yet. So I think it's one of those ones we hope we don't have one, but I can pull up quickly what that looks like. I have it in front of me and it'll only take me 3 seconds, I hope.
I was visiting a friend in Yuma, and he works in the vegetable area, and the tolerance on certain diseases in lettuce is almost zero. Um, and he's been doing imaging, but it still isn't quite accurate enough to to uh, to trigger the applications in those really critical diseases.
Yeah. I think what I'll probably, so if you can see my computer screen now, this is what the actual interface looks like. So you fly the field, takes a bunch of images. It gives you something like this and says special attention required. And then you can click on that box and kind of see what the person has mentioned. In this instance, all they said was special attention required. But typically it comes out like a lot of the late blight dead detections start like this.
Yeah.
But this is kind of the granularity of what we're getting from the 2 meter drone imagery. Like it's super detailed. And if it were to kind of like mimic late blight, it would say late blight dead or late blight straight up. So again, in a perfect world, we don't see it, but this is what it would look like should we see it. And it does give you like that red dot. And when you see that amongst sort of like all of the dots, obviously it sticks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other side you can look at is you can like pull an actual summary to the grower that just gives a PDF document. So if you're like, hey, I don't have time to use the interface, just send me a PDF document. All of these individual findings would come to a report in your inbox, and you can click the image, and it GPSs you to that exact location in the field. So it was a super useful tool. And again, I can't speak to the efficiency of treating the late blight because we haven't really seen it yet. But yeah, maybe I'll be able to tell you by the end of the summer, but I hope not.
Yeah, so do I. Good,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, no
Great.
problem.
It's amazing to see, the combination of AI and the equipment that we have that can give you that kind of granularity at the field level, and in your inbox and be able to treat within 24 hours. So certainly all great lessons and very happy that you were able to attend and speak today, Chad.
Yeah, what I'll keep you posted on, Jill, is this summer where the government's working with us on an autonomous trial where
Mhm.
we're buying like a DJI drone in the box that like takes off and flies on its own on a schedule. And it'll be flying like, 100, 200 acres around the farm almost daily. But completely like not like the drone box charges it. And when it lands, it uploads the data and it'll just be processed and sent in the inbox. With the goal of by the end of the summer doing like almost like a completely autonomous like detect and spray at the farm. To say the drone flew, it detected something, and the big drone went out and sprayed it with like as little human in the loop contact as possible. So, yeah,
Amazing, truly amazing. Thanks a lot, Chad.
no problem. And if any of you find yourself in PEI, please look me up. And yeah, you've seen the beautiful video at the start. David had 3 questions, so he gets a free night at the house. And
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
awesome.
thanks.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Jill.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Take care.
Have a good afternoon.
You guys.
All right. So great discussions on that. And as we move through here, I'm sure that we will get what we heard after the PRMA. They're looking at those proposed changes. So going forward, hopefully we'll get some positive movement to be able to have this tool in the toolbox. So we will move on to the resolutions portion of the meeting. And as we didn't get any resolutions presented from the districts, we will actually have some time here in our cross-provincial update and other business to have, Q&A later on, after I kind of go through any concerns or updates from the members that are on the call. So we'll start out with the Commodity Association. So I will bring up my my list of individuals that are on the call here today, and in no particular order. If you want to raise your hand from the commodity associations, I see that we have. I guess I might call out on some individuals. Is there? I see Duncan is on the call from Forage and Grass. If you have an update from your commodity association, Duncan.
Hi, Jill. Hi, everyone. Duncan Morrison from Manitoba Forage and Grassland Association. I'm in my basement, and it's not really as cold as I look, but I'm ready for a little warmer weather for sure. We're hustling as usual. We're getting ready for for our annual conference in November. We're just locking down some keynotes, and yeah, it's going to be another good show. It's our 9th year. It's hard to believe. Other than that, we're in kind of waiting mode on some projects, and looking forward to a conversation with Colin next week to get synced up with some of KAP's activities. So thanks.
Great. Thanks a lot, Duncan. I'll go further down here. If you want to put up your hand, if you're here with an association, Marg Rempel from Manitoba Pork.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Probably top of our agenda right now is that our annual meeting is coming up on April 9th. It will be held at the RBC Convention Center this year, as opposed to the Fairmont where it's been for many years. Our sector generally has been stable considering the ongoing tariff and trade environment that we've been in for the last number of months, particularly. We received news recently that the Made in US label for meat, poultry, and eggs has been put in place as a voluntary measure, not a mandatory one, which as hog producers, we're grateful for because that will impede less on the movement of weanling pigs into the US. And there continues to be a strong demand for that from Manitoba. Certainly the increase in fuel costs adds a worrisome pressure to our costs of production in the coming months. And we, of course, are like everyone else, that's completely unpredictable for us, but certainly a considerable concern. In terms of disease, we've had one positive location for PED virus back in December, and 2 locations that tested positive for Delta coronavirus, but are very happy that our strong partnerships and collaboration in terms of keeping our biosecurity at the highest levels possible seems to be paying off in terms of our being able to stay relatively disease-free. If there are any questions, I can try and answer those, but that's a quick snapshot.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mark, for that. I don't see any hands up. I do see Mike from Manitoba Beekeepers next.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Okay, for cross beekeeper update, everyone's starting to move their bees out right now. We just came off our 4th year of a heavy loss, so we're 4 years of over 40% in our industry, so we're still in flux. We just had our AGM, and we joined the other major provinces of honey production to put a pause on all imports from Europe as there is a new invasive pest ravaging across the globe. And we're trying to stop it from also getting into Canada, which would put another stressor on what we have been doing. I'd like to take this time just to remind everyone when they're doing their applications, if you notice a bee yard anywhere in your area, and to make sure there's a good boundary between your spray and that, as well as if possible, earlier or later spraying applications is very beneficial, as the pollinators are struggling the last few years. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mike, for that. I'm looking, is there any other associations that wish to give an update here this morning? If you want to just raise your hand. Rather than me going through the whole list here, is there anybody here from Manitoba Dairy Farmers of Manitoba?
No.
Okay, what I'll maybe do is switch to the districts at this point in time, and then certainly if there's any other commodity associations that have updates, feel free to put your hand up, and we can fit it in here. We've got some additional time. We'll start with District 1, and I see David Rourke in his picture up on my screen here. So I'll maybe start with you out in District 1, David.
I guess at this kind of time of year, we're all kind of in the same boat, and the war that our good neighbor is thrust upon the world is going to affect input prices, but maybe grain prices. I think machinery dealers are feeling that we're kind of hunkering down and not spending as much money as we might in other years. Personally, we're pumping some water just to make sure that we have a little bit of irrigation capability for some special stuff in the spring, but runoffs was going to happen really quick and then cooled off and slowed down a little bit, but a lot of water is going to run. But our farm, the grain movement's been quite good. We don't have too much product left to go. So kind of normal, except for the war part.
Thanks for that, David. And District 2, I have Scott Melvin. Do you have any concerns or anything coming out of your district?
Honestly, I'm a horrible guy to ask. I see Scott Mowbray on the call. He might be better. I have an off-farm job that supports my farming habits, so he's maybe a better guy to ask. Are you on the line, Scott?
I am. I wouldn't add a whole lot other than it's continues to be cool. We seem to get a couple of days of nice weather, and it makes you think, oh, maybe it's spring, and then right back into the deep freeze again for a week. So just kind of in a holding pattern right now.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot from both the Scots. District 3, I have either Colin Penner or we've got Scott. Colin, do you have any comments on District 3?
Yeah, no, we're in the same boat. I mean, typically this time of year we're starting to pump water to fill the ponds already, but things are still, the fields are blackening up and there's lakes, but the ditches haven't started really to fill yet. So we're probably a week behind normal, but no, I don't know. Things are in decent shape. Yeah, similar comments to the other districts.
Great, Colin. And as far as a fertilizer application and field work, were you in your area hit with the excess moisture last fall, or is that generally probably something we're seeing?
Yeah, we were pretty, I mean, I'm a little rammy at times, and so we got about half of our anhydrous put on. But I think there were only 3 of us that were putting on anhydrous last fall. We've got the rest of the fertilizer in the bin, but if you get a little bit east of us, it was definitely wetter there. A lot of guys didn't get field work done. Fields are in an absolute mess after the fall rains. So I don't know, what, half of our farm's in reasonable shape and half of it's going to be a little bit fun in spring. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and one other quick question, and I forgot to ask the other members. We've been hearing some supply availability an issue, and that was actually even before the Iran, like before the what happened in the Strait, and certainly with Iran. So I'm just wondering, any concerns in your area for availability of fertilizer, and that goes back to as early as January.
Yeah, I mean, for folks that have prepaid and have got it home, great. For other folks that have prepaid and they were hoping to pick it up in spring, I've heard rumors as far as, maybe 75% they'll be able to pick up. Other ones they're talking maybe they might not get UAN. So I think there could be issues. Yeah, something to keep an eye on.
Great, thanks for that. We'll move on to District 4, Kevin.
Yeah, I think condition wise, we're probably similar to District 3 there, like Colin said. Struggling probably in spring here to get all our field work, prep work done before seeding, I think will be a challenge for a lot of producers in our district. But yeah, I think everyone's sort of waiting for the warm up and anxious to get out there.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. District 5, Jeneth. I don't know if she's still on the call. She might have left the call. Is there anyone else from District 5? Okay, we will keep moving. Chuck, I'm going to leave District 6 and 7 up to you if you have any comments in anything different as it relates to either the central area or a little bit west to District 7. And I see we've got maybe some producers there from out that area as well, just to comment on your areas.
Okay, well, for the east side of District 6, pretty much like Colin said, not a lot of fertilizer went on. A lot of fields, especially cornfields, are very cut up and rutted, and they're going to take some work to get a seed bed prepared later this spring. What I'm hearing is most farmers have pre-booked their fertilizer, and the ones who have pre-booked, I'm told, should be able to get all that they need. I know at least one local fertilizer dealership, they kind of changed around some of the fertilizer blends that they're carrying in order to have enough urea on hand. But I have heard that there are a few, not very many, maybe 3 or 4 producers who waited a little too long, and now the dealers are saying, we don't know if we can supply you with fertilizer. And so they are not, they're struggling to find new sources of fertilizer from other dealerships. But it sounds like if you pre-booked, you'll be okay. But if you didn't book enough or you didn't book it early enough, it could be hard to find. So that's about it for District 6 on the east side. District 7, I honestly haven't had a chance to talk to any producers from out there, so I'm not sure what the conditions are like. Maybe there's somebody on the call here.
Great. Thank you, Chuck. So if we go to the west side of the province, I see Michael Kingdon from District 9. Is there any concerns kind of out on your area of the province so far this spring?
Not that I'm aware of. We got a lot of snow here to go through, and we're a little bit behind, I would say. So
Okay.
other than that, it's pretty much the same as everybody else, just waiting for spring.
Great. Thank you for that, Michael. And so now we'll go back to the center of the province in the Interlake area. And Shannon was on the call. Shannon, are you still on the call today?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Shannon.
Good morning, everyone. So in the northern part of our district, we were just on a call with the province earlier, and we had already started doing some planning for flooding in our municipalities. So the watershed of the Fisher River actually has a moderate to high risk for flooding this spring. And so plans are starting and doing some prep work. Our fields are still totally covered, probably by at least a foot of snow. In our bushes, we probably have at least 3 feet. So we still have lots of snow to get rid of before we can see a field. Fertilizer costs as well as fuel costs continue to be a concern for the farmers in our district, absolutely. And in terms of availability, even for those farmers who have prepaid, but not delivered prior to this point, there is some concern about availability of fertilizer. One of the major plants was down. I know some of our suppliers are looking at, as you have indicated, Chuck, a different mix, a different blend to try and meet the needs of the producers. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Shannon. And then I guess lastly, if we go to the northwest, right in the Swan River area, James, you're on the call. Is there anything kind of from your area?
Well, we had good moisture in the fall, and we've got lots of snow, so the water situation should be very good for ourselves. Waiting for the sunshine. When it comes out, it's nice and strong, melting already in places. Third ingredient, fertilizer, is very similar to the rest of the province. We had a lot put on in the fall because of the favorable weather, so pretty good shape that way, but availability and booking is very similar through the province.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks, James. And I'll just kind of open the floor again if there were any outstanding commodity associations that had any other updates. If not, feel free to provide that update to the KAP office, and we can certainly relay that information and have it in our next KAP alert with any updates with that. I'm just I'm watching on the side to see if I have any other hands for individuals with comments. We will kind of pivot here to other business, and I know that David brought up AAFC. I know that we did comment briefly on that in our office updates. I guess specifically that resolution did go from Manitoba, from Keystone Ag Producers to the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, where that did pass as well. So in a lot of cases, like national advocacy issues, we're basically we are assisting and providing information and letting CFA basically take the lead on that file as they do their lobbying and have direct contact federally in that area. Neil, I don't know if there's anything other than that to share at this point in time. I know David had asked specifically on opportunities for petitions, etc., going forward. I know that might be a suggestion to have that focus at a national level, where all commodity associations and stakeholders kind of carry the same message along with support from CFA. But is there anything that has come out of the conversation so far, Neil?
I think you've summed it up well, Jill.
Okay.
Continue to work with commodity groups, whether provincially or nationally, on this issue.
Okay. Any other questions on that from the members that are on the call? I know that probably doesn't answer your question 100%, David, but certainly I think the message to the department, and I know that Neil and Leisha both met with members at the department when we were in Ottawa, and of course research and cuts were part of the conversation. And the message coming from CFA right now is to, our request is to put a pause on it so that we can have further consultations to see and to ensure that there isn't any negative impacts affect this year, as it was fairly sudden as far as to stop research that's happening today. But is there any other questions or comments from members on that? Or I've got Chuck and then David. Did you have another comment? I'll let Chuck comment and then David.
I'll let David go first, because actually I was just going to provide a few comments on canola.
Oh, okay. Oh, thanks, Chuck. Okay, David.
Sure. I just wanted to give you a heads up, and I sent you a copy of an op-ed that I've written, and it'll hopefully go to some rural papers as well as some urban papers. It's a fairly satirical. It says, "Want to boost farm incomes? Try reducing farm output. Agriculture Canada research cuts are just an example of how badly this sector is undervalued. If the government's objective is to increase farm incomes, one option is to raise prices. And the easiest way to accomplish that is to constrain food supply and increase food security. Few politicians would agree that that's a good strategy, but that may well be the outcome of federal government's approach to the agri-food sector. If adopted globally, Canada's playbook would result in wealthier farmers, but it would also come at the expense of consumers. This is what the playbook looks like, and I had 4 points: undermining public agricultural research, continuing underfunding transformational innovation, allowing foreign control of the value chain, and neglecting climate and sustainability goals. And then I just conclude by saying AFC is a critical driver of agricultural innovation. While programs should always be reviewed and improved, broad funding cuts that undermine the interconnectedness of agricultural innovation systems are short-sighted. Prime Minister Carney, if your goal is to make farmers wealthy, these measures may well succeed, but it is unlikely that the other 99% of Canadians would welcome the consequences. For those that think cutting public spending on agricultural innovation is short-sighted, sign a petition, send a letter to your local MP or your Minister of Agriculture and to Prime Minister Carney. So just a heads up.
Sure. Thanks for that, David. And I think just to build on that, and the pillars of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, innovation and research definitely is one of them. And message that is being brought forward there is innovation to drive some of the goals for food security is very top of mind. So thank you for your comments, David. We'll pivot now to Chuck, if there's nothing else on AFC. Chuck, you just have a comment or update from Manitoba canola growers.
Well, it's just a little bit of information, I guess, about Manitoba canola growers. They have a board meeting today, so that's why Warren's not on the call. But I was at the Canola Council AGM in Toronto there a week or so ago, and just some of the highlights maybe about China. I mean, everybody's concerned about what's happening with our deal on canola, and essentially, we all should know that China has reduced the tariff on canola going into their country from, now I'm trying to remember, 76% down to 14.9%, and that 14.9% represents two parts. There was a 9% tariff that we are always paying as a most favored nation shipping canola to China. And then they added a 5.9% tariff for what they call dumping. So for the next 5 years, unless China decides to change the tariff, we'll be paying a 15%, we won't be paying, but China will be paying a 15% tariff on all imported canola seed from Canada. They have removed the tariff on canola meal, so that's down to 0 or wherever it was originally. But the canola oil still has a 100% tariff on it. So we got to wait and see what's going to happen over the next few months, because there's still some question about what happens after December 31st. Hopefully things will continue on, and China might even remove their dumping tariff, but we'll have to see what's going to go forward on that. So I just want to make sure everybody understood kind of like where we are with China. Council and canola growers, I don't believe, are going to fight this 5% dumping fee. They're quite prepared to just leave things where they are, and hopefully we can get back to more normal trade circumstances with China as things progress. But we're all seeing what's happening with tariffs around the world, and all sorts of trade wars happening. So we just got to wait and see.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for that update, Chuck. And Scott Mowbray, I have your hand is up. Did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, Jill, sorry, I was just a little slow on my phone, trying to get over there to get my hand up when you were looking for reports from different commodity organizations. And I guess I'm not really prepared to give one for MCA, but I could give you just a couple of quick highlights.
Sure.
Just to kind of prompt maybe some people to look for additional information. And MCA, as some of you may know, is a part of an organization, a Western Canadian organization called the Canadian Wheat Research Coalition, or CWRC. We're also a part of this CBRC, the Canadian Barley Research Coalition. They're both kind of overarching groups that contain the wheat growers from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, or the barley growers from those three provinces as well. And it's just kind of a way to coordinate funding and research, funding for breeding programs, but also research projects to make sure there isn't overlap. And a couple of things they've been working on lately, like they have been in talks with AFC to try and determine the effects of some of these cuts on existing research projects. We've been assured that there isn't going to be effects, but considering AFC are the primary, they're the primary organizer of those projects, it's hard to see that there won't be effects somewhere. Kind of on a related note, and it came up at the AGM at Crop Connect, which was a great couple of days at our AGM, and just discussing the gap analysis that CWRC has had performed by Synthesis Ag, and it's just a kind of a run of a SWOT analysis, really, of the wheat breeding innovation sphere in Canada, and looking for what strengths and weaknesses are there, and maybe some opportunities and threats as well as we move forward. And I just encourage people to go to the CWRC's website and have a quick look through that gap analysis. There's some good information there on where we see some issues with the current wheat breeding system, and just that we feel that status quo, especially after these recent cuts, is just not sustainable. And then I guess I'll end off just the last thing. I think and that probably goes for all the commodity organizations that participate in the on-farm research program, that I think all the protocols are available for this year's on-farm research program. So I'd encourage people to go to the websites and have a look at those and see if there's a way they can participate in some on-farm research and help themselves and all the rest of the producers in the province.
Great, thanks. And it's great insight there, Scott, on what's happening kind of on the with our other associations that on the research front. And certainly if you see anything outliers or effects, to for sure relay those, or have from the association relay those through Pam, through their meetings with Colin and the team at KAP, so that we have that information and are able to relay that on to CFA. But thanks very much for your comments. Just looking to see if anyone else has a comment or a question. I see, David, is that a legacy hand up? I'll give you one more quick question, and then we will, I think, adjourn for the morning. So anything, quick question.
Yeah, Scott, certainly you all already know that even though they didn't cut Richard Cuthbert's position, they caused enough stress in his program that they've lost considerable expertise, and that should be a big concern to all of us, even though it's not a direct cut, and I'm sure you already know that.
Yeah, thanks for that, David. All right. With that, I think on the agenda at the end, we had kind of noted that our next advisory meeting is on July the 22nd. I'll put a plug out again for our annual golf tournament, which is actually on the 23rd. So you'll see notices and early registration for that. So hopefully to see great participation. We did have really great participation last year and have increased the number of our availability for participants again this year. So great event to network and interact with other members, and certainly our stakeholders in here in Manitoba. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Jill, one more thing there.
Yeah.
About timing of the meeting we were going to talk about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What we will do, thanks for reminding me, James. We'll send out just a quick survey after the in the next day or so to participants of our meeting on the time, and just there'll be a place there to ask if our time that we're having in the morning is appropriate, or the other option was to have maybe an evening meeting. certainly for that July meeting, just because of everyone's busy out in the field. So we'll include that question, James, in the survey, just for flow and just to get an idea on how everyone felt about the advisory council meeting today. How's that sound?
Sounds good. And then I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, James. Seconder for that motion.
Mike Clark.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, thank you, everyone, and have a great day, and we'll see you next. Bye-bye.